Welcome to Helping Organisations Thrive. Today I'll be talking to Dr Vikas Vats. Good morning to you, or good afternoon to you, Vikas.
Very good afternoon, Julian.
Good to see you. So you are a HR thought leader and leadership coach, and you help organisations get the maximum out of people, processes and technology. And today we're going to be exploring the science and psychological impact of leadership and motivation in organisations. But before we go there, Vikas, what do you love about what you do?
I love the impact that it creates for individuals and the organizations because, as you introduced the topic, that the psychological impact and the science behind leadership. So, once we are working in this domain, we are able to create long term impacts. So, that's what I love most about my work.
And when did you realise that you loved having this impact on organisation? When was that moment? I'm assuming it was many years
Right.
ago when you had that time.
Yes. So I think it goes back to almost 20 years. I used to work in a company in HR. So before coming into consulting and what I do now, I was in HR in a job in different jobs for 5 years. And as part timer, I developed a psychometric software for one organization. They were having a lot of attrition. So they wanted me to help them with the attrition. I developed a psychological test and that helped them. And meanwhile, I had shifted my job. So this CEO, he came to my new place looking for me. And he was like, because you just disappeared and I didn't have, because those days we didn't used to have a lot of emails or mobile, etc. So he was like that, now this software, this tool is working very good for me. And I want to develop this in form of a software. So we developed the first psychometric software of India, Smart Hiring at that time. That was 1999, 2000. And we were able to help over 300 organizations that time. So then I realized when I met this CEO that, okay, some bigger impacts can also be created through HR instead of just the transactional stuff.
Now you've got this interest in the sort of the science behind how we work in organisations and how people are motivated. And obviously, it's important to have your staff motivated and inspired to work. And we know, I guess, money is an aspect of that, but there's other things we need to consider. And so, I'd like us to just really understand from your perspective and just explain a bit more about sort of motivation within organisations, motivation within the workforce.
Well, let me start from the outset, the beginning. What exactly is motivation, right? Because a lot of things in organization leaders do for motivation to motivate their employees, their followers, and these don't have the whatever interventions they do, they don't have long-term impacts. They create motivation and that fades away. So let's understand what exactly motivation is, why it fades away, and how it can be sustained. That will help all leaders having long-term motivational strategies. So motivation is a neurotransmitter. It's a chemical in our body, in our brain, secreted by our brain. So it is a chemical. If this neurotransmitter or chemical, somebody has it, he's motivated. Somebody doesn't have, he's not motivated. So that is dopamine. We call it dopamine. So whatever we do for motivation, we are actually creating more dopamine in the brain and doing sort of conditioning of this person with the dopamine. Dopamine is a feel good hormone, feel good chemical. Once we have the dopamine, we feel good, and that's why we try to do the same activity again and again to get the dopamine again. So that's how we put ourselves in the habit. So even the social media platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, so scientifically they are not social media. Scientifically, say Facebook or Instagram, they are a game. We are playing this game to get more likes, shares, comments, and that gives us a dopamine kick, right? Similarly, in casinos, the people who go to casinos, they go there for the dopamine kick. Even the drugs, the people who are habitual of taking drugs, that also gives them the dopamine. So that's the power of dopamine. So now, this is a good thing about dopamine, but the bad thing maybe is that it is not long lasting. It comes into our body, it fades away, and we need it again. So if the leaders know how to convert motivation into habit, then it becomes sustainable and long term. Because now to get that dopamine again and again, the people, the employees, they will perform that particular activity wherever it is linked again and again. So what exactly we need to know is how to convert motivation into habits.
I've never thought about motivation in that way. Actually, obviously, I'm aware of dopamine and the fact dopamine gives you this high and gives you this feel good, and it's great for building resilience. But I've never seen it as a perspective of motivation, actually. And so, having understood that, we want to try and create this dopamine that creates motivation for people to do work, and they feel good and they feel positive, and we know that when people do feel good and positive, they tend to do better work as well. So, as a leader, how do we, I guess, tap into that? And as you said, how do we create that sort of more sustainable perspective of motivation with our staff?
Okay. So it can go in every aspect of organization, starting from the communication, how leaders communicate, to how they deal with in all form of communication, and what kind of strategies they come up with, the reinforcement of R&R strategies to OD strategies. Everything can be built around dopamine and its impact. So how it works is one. So now whatever we are discussing, this happens subconsciously. So our employees, they don't even know why they are doing something. They never realize that, okay, I'm doing this particular activity again and again because I'm getting dopamine out of it. So 96 to 98% of our behaviors, as we know, are subconscious level. So now leaders need to develop strategy and interventions so that people get habitual of working in a particular way, whatever they want. Now, for example, they want to change any particular behaviors with the Salesforce, for example. So we get a lot of queries related to Salesforce, where the sales team, they are not motivated because they have certain thoughts in their mind. For example, our products are not good, our products are costlier, competitor has wider reach, they have a bigger brand name. So they have so many inhibitions in their mind. So now how to delete those inhibitions, how to create more positivity about our own brand in their brain. So if my sales team, they themselves are not convinced about my product, they cannot sell it to others, right? So in all the levels, say production, if you're talking about production, then you certainly want to mitigate the rework, the rejection, you want to mitigate the absenteeism, you want to mitigate the errors, the products with the faults. So now again, if we now let me give you an example. So whatever human behavior is focused and assessed, that increases. So this is simple psychology. Any human behavior which is given attention or energy, that increases. Now from the leader's perspective, if I want to mitigate something, I want to mitigate mistakes, I want to mitigate rework or faulty products, but if I am assessing these products, if I am continuously assessing these products, now what is happening is I am sending lot of neural impulses to that part of my employees' neural connections, which is responsible for generating these not so good products. And their number will never reach to zero in that case, right? So now instead of that, instead of focusing on what I don't want to happen in the organization, if I start focusing on what I want to happen, I can always have 100% correct products, but having 0% not so good products is not possible. Because if I am assessing that, I'm taking those neural connections again and again. So I'm motivating indirectly, but in a very systematic and scientific way, my employees to generate those products which I don't want, the faulty ones. So now if I start working on what I want and I motivate my team members for what I want, I am discussing what I want, how to take this metric to 100%, that will help instead of what I don't want. So there can be various levels where I can use how people get motivated, how our mind actually works, and then I align the science with my leadership competence.
So, and it's quite subtle, isn't it? You say about focusing on the almost the negative or the positive. If you focus on one, although not inadvertently, you're looking at trying to the things that are errors. Actually creates that almost a demotivation, and actually focusing on the things that are more positive seems to instill that motivation. How do we, when we're sort of obviously we're all different. We're all motivated in different ways and have different levels of dopamine, different levels of, I suppose, excitement, to a threshold for that as well. How are we mindful of when we have a team of people to try and get everybody sort of motivated? What sort of ways can we be that would help us do that in a team context?
Yeah, wonderful question. So, as you said rightly, different people get motivated differently. So, there are various tools available, psychological tests available, even online somebody can get. So, if I administer those tools to my team members, I will come to know, okay, this person gets motivated through money, but for this person, after a certain amount of money, designation or name and fame is more important. For this person, recognition is more important. For some other person, maybe leaves or other perks are more important. So different people get motivated differently. And as a leader, I should be aware that which of my team member gets motivated how. Uh, it is usually said then whatever I give, whatever reinforcement I give, tangent or non-tangent, to generate motivation, it actually has to be a reward from other person's perspective, not from my own perspective. Maybe I love reading books. Somebody gives me a book, that will be reward for me, that will generate motivation in me. But maybe it will not be reward for somebody else. So this is important that among my team members, I know how somebody gets motivated. And if I'm talking about organization level, then at organization level, I should be aware of different clusters, that okay, these are the kind of people who get motivated in this way. And my whole R&R strategy should be around that everybody either has option to choose what you want after performing, after achieving certain goals and targets, instead of it's fixed, okay, this is what you get if you achieve this. So there should be a bucket and people can pick. So now with the advent of technology through different apps, this is very much possible also.
And if you've, I mean, psychometric tests are a good way of understanding how people sort of tick and what motivates them. In the absence of not having a psychometric test, what do you think is the best way of trying to understand what might be certain motivations, so you can sort of employ those motivators to get people going? What would be your experience of that?
One very simple is just ask. If you have team, just ask what makes you feel good. Second is observation. If you observe your team members, and also whatever motivates me, I normally try to talk a lot about that. If say we now FIFA is happening, and the football and the World Cup. So if somebody if somebody gets motivated through sports, especially say football, that person will be talking about who won, who lost. So you can use observation, or you can just simply ask that what makes you very happy. If if God asks you for 3 wishes, which one those will be? So you can just simply ask few questions, and you'll come to know that what is important for somebody.
Yeah, so it's important to really get to know people who work with us, don't we? So we know exactly what makes them tick, and almost being interested their outside interest of work, because obviously that's a good way of understanding what motivates them. Is it, is it doing stuff for charity? Is it sports, as you say, or being involved in sports, or is it doing stuff with the family? And it's understanding that to really understand those drivers. Now, there's this thing, obviously, we have like just going to ourselves, really, trying to help us motivate ourselves. And we've just been talking about leaders trying to help motivate other individuals. And we have this intrinsic and extrinsic sort of motivation. How, as a leader, shall we try and help ourselves to motivate ourselves without the sense of having external? What sort of things we need to think about and help us in terms of our mindset, I guess, to try and get into that motivational piece when we're feeling a little bit perhaps flat at times?
Yeah, great. So I usually say there are 5 competencies for leaders, what they must possess. And the first one is this only, that you need to know how to reprogram your subconscious mind through your conscious. So leaders, that's why consciously should do things to motivate themselves at subconscious level, and they need to have some reward mechanism for themselves also, because motivation, like bathing, like we take bath every day, similarly we need to do something motivation every day. You cannot just assume that okay, because I am leader, I am supposed to be motivated and motivate others, that's why I will always be motivated. No, So if you have certain targets for yourself, when you achieve those, there should be some reward for yourself, if not at organization level, at personal level. Okay, for example, say we were taking example of sports, or a particular kind of food, or a particular gadget, or a particular tour to some place. Okay, if I achieve this, I will give myself this particular thing. So that works at subconscious level, because at all the time now your subconscious, your mind is aware, this is where I have to reach, and it will start taking you at that level. So that you might have observed two very interesting phenomena. One, whenever we are driving, many times we are in our thoughts, but we are going in the right direction, we are taking the right turns, because our mind knows where I have to go, and it makes our body go in the right direction. So once a leader knows and there is some reward attached to it, even your subconscious is taking you in the right direction, and it generates the kind of motivation that is required for you. And because the job of a leader is very different than others. From some of your team members, you will get positive news. From some, you will get negative news, or from some neutral news. But you have to be at same level with all the people. So how you reprogram your own mind, and not only what you say, how you look, how you smile, your body language. So for that, this is very important competency, that you are able to motivate yourself at will. So there are some techniques, NLP based techniques, anchoring, how you can motivate yourself. So if you learn those techniques, maybe if we have time, I'll give one of them. So if you can motivate yourself at will, that will help. So one simple technique can be, it is a brain hacking technique, actually. So our mind, our subconscious mind, it has one limitation, that it cannot differentiate between imagination and reality. I repeat, our mind cannot differentiate between imagination and reality. So that's why there are some people, while watching some very sentimental movies, start crying, or when we are watching some action movie, we feel a lot of adrenaline in ourselves. So now, if I'm not feeling that motivated, which I would like to feel, I just need to relax, close my eyes, and I will imagine I will go in that part of my life, that time of my life where I was at the highest, at the peak of my motivation. And through my five senses, I will close my eyes, go in that particular event where I think I was highly motivated, and I will use as many senses as possible to be there. For example, I will see what is happening, eyes. I will touch things there, or shake hand with the people there. I would smell what is happening there. I will listen to the things there. So I will use as much senses as possible and try to be there. Now my mind, which cannot differentiate between imagination and reality, believes that I am there. And now, because I'm at a place where I was highly motivated, my mind thinks now I should be motivated, and it creates the same combination of the bouquet of neurotransmitters which were present at that time. So that's how I can hack into my mind and start feeling good. So this is one simple technique, though it requires some practice, and there are various YouTube videos available around these things. So few such tricks under my belt, if I have as a leader, I can motivate myself within milliseconds.
And it's important to have those sort of tools, because if there's nobody's motivating you, you've got to motivate yourself. And we've got to recognize that, we're not all firing on all cylinders of motivation all the time, and we have those moments when we get knocked, or we hear some news, or somebody says something, and that technique, that brain hack, almost like visualizations. I know a lot of athletes use that for that. And I use it a lot with my clients as well. And it's
stage performance.
It's so powerful, and it's such a simple technique, but yes, it actually helps you, enables you to really be there. As you say, your brain doesn't know whether it's real or not real, imagination or reality. What other, you talked about reprogramming. I like that idea that sometimes we need to reprogram our brains. Is there any other sort of hacks that you've got that would help a leader to reprogram them to be more motivated to perform at peak performance, I guess?
Okay. For themselves, right? For leaders, for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So another very simple hack can be, your subconscious is what has gone in your subconscious since the time you took birth, through your five sensory organs. So for example, if this is my mind, the upper small part is conscious, this is subconscious, like a hard disk. So our subconscious is like hard disk, and conscious mind, which knows what I should do, what is good for me, that is just the processor and RAM. Nothing is stored there. Conscious knows what is good for me, but what but it will be able to do what subconscious helps it to do. It generates the right kind of impulses and motivation in you. So another interesting thing you can do is that you can change your subconscious by consciously pouring in something into it. For example, if I have certain thoughts about any concept, any fundamental or anything, I have certain thoughts, they are based on some learnings which have happened in my mind. So if I read or if I watch something, some opposite viewpoint, and I send those logics in my subconscious, the subconscious will change. So similarly, you can change yourself, your attitude, your behavior, whatever you want to change by reading and studying the kind of viewpoint you want yourself to be in, whatever you want to think, whatever you want to believe in. Once you start sending those information, those material in your mind consciously, your thinking process is changed. One simple thing is, for example, one example I usually give. Okay, so if somebody doesn't eat a particular kind of food, you don't like a particular kind of food, but you read a lot of articles around how this food is very nutritious and it can be very good for you, then you start detesting that food less, and maybe you start liking that food because now in your subconscious that food is very good for you. So similarly, any particular person, as a leader, if I don't like anybody, right, and I think, okay, there is some bias in me for the particular person, particular team member, and I want to get rid of that bias. So the simple thing I need to do is, okay, I will just think 5, 7, maybe 10 positive points in that particular person, why this person, this team member is good, what positivity this person has. I have to force myself though, but once I think about those 5, 7 or 10 points, whatever I can, now I have told my subconscious something else, something apart from what is actually believed. So that's how this is another thing, that you send some different kind of material in your subconscious and it changes. I'm sure you must be aware now that there are some researches that even in your life somebody becomes average of those 5 people with whom you spend most time. So there are some articles around this. So this comes from there only. Now whatever people I am talking to most, what kind of what level of thoughts, concepts, ideas are being generated in my mind, I will be average of those. So you need to change those averages. And these days, again, due to technology, not necessarily I meet a lot of good people. I can read their viewpoints, I can listen to them, and that's how I can reprogram my subconscious.
And that's really important, actually. I think it's being mindful of those people that are around you. Actually, you are the average of those you spend time with, which can be a positive, but actually is making sure that we're, I guess, filling our heads, as you say. If you've got a, you didn't like a particular vegetable and you find more about it in terms of the positive attributes of that vegetable, you're subconsciously going to start to drive that interest and desire to try and eat that vegetable, whatever it may be. In terms of going back to motivation in an organization, what from your opinion, I guess, kills motivation or becomes a real obstacle for motivation to happen within individuals in organizations?
Okay, so there are some principles on which our brain works. So, for example, if I expect something from the organization, something is promised, the overall culture of the organization, and there's no clarity of job roles or what is expected out of me, and I don't know where we are heading, where we are moving, and what is the impact of my role in the organization at bigger level, and whatever I'm doing, why and how this is important. So these are certain factors which do not motivate me, rather demotivate me. I'm doing something without knowing why I'm doing something. So as a human being, this is important for us, that whatever I am doing, I need to know the bigger picture as well. Sometimes as a leader, we don't have time to go into that much of detail and update the team members that how their particular smaller part of the work is adding value to the overall organizational output. So once I know how I'm aligned to the organization and how one small thing is adding value, and why this is important, that is motivating. So I'll give you an example. I was working with this company. They make some particular medicine which is life saving. In dengue it is useful, and I was there for speaking in their sales meet, national level sales meet, and all the sales people, sales head were there. So now how they were discussing the targets are, okay, how many pills or how many packets you are able to being, you are being able to sell. So after a talk with the CEO, we did a little change. So I asked him, uh, how many pills somebody on average has to take to get cured? So they were like 15 to 20. So it means a person who has sold 15,000 to 20,000 pills, he has saved 1,000 lives. Right. So now from the stage, instead of asking how many you have sold or what is your target for next year, what if you say, okay, you saved 1,000 lives. Let's clap for this gentleman. And how many lives you would like to save next year? Now that is motivating because adding value not only to my organization, also I'm doing something, some greater good. So once any employee knows how that particular person, the team member or employee is adding value apart from the routine work, that is motivating.
It's creating that sense of things that it's a meaningful piece of work, and we're contributing to the bigger thing, isn't it? That's what
Exactly.
it's beyond their own sort of what they see. Actually, is what they're contributing to. Like, I know when they were, NASA were trying to get to the moon, everybody knew the mission was to land on the moon, and everybody was part of that and caught up with that. And so whether you were in the control room through to making food for the staff, you are contributing to something quite meaningful and bigger. And as you say, it's being really clear and aware, making people aware of that bigger piece of a purpose or a mission of an organization. I've really enjoyed talking to you, Dr. Vikas Vats, in terms of understanding those brain hacks as well, in terms of helping leaders self-motivate themselves, which I think is really important, but also be mindful of how can we help motivate our staff with increasing their sort of dopamine levels. If people are interested in getting to know you and want to connect with you, what's the best way of doing that?
I think LinkedIn is one of the best way, or my email ID. That would be the best way.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you for your time today, Vikas. Really enjoyed it and appreciate your contribution and what you've shared today. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian,